5 Ways of Restarting Fermentation in a Wash. Moonshine Life Group. By J.B. Wagonmaker. New moonshiners often face situations when after a few days of setting the ingredients the wash stops fermenting and remains sweet. Worst case scenario, fermentation doesn't start after adding yeast. Let's go over the main reasons behind this problem and ways of reviving the wash. 1. Not enough time passed. Sometimes the wash won't start fermenting right away. Depending on the materials used, temperature, yeast type, and methods of adding yeast to wort, diluted or not, visible signs of fermentation, foam, hissing sounds, sour smell, bubbling airlock, may become apparent only in a few hours. Something is wrong if the wash is not fermenting after 6 to 8 hours after adding yeast. 2. The airlock passing. This is a common problem of many starting moonshiners who determine fermentation only by bubbles coming out of the airlock. If it's not installed right, carbon dioxide will come out from other holes missing the tube. As a result, the airlock won't show any signs of fermentation even if it's ongoing. Solution: check the airlock for pressure integrity by blowing through the tube leading to the container. If you hear a whistle, there's a problematic area that requires sealing. If the airlock is passing air, the fermented wash might turn sour, which will lead to a smaller yield and sour aftertaste. Using an airlock is essential. 3. Unfitting temperature conditions. The optimum temperature of wash fermentation with distilling yeast is 80 to 85 degrees and the permissible range is 65 to 75 degrees. At a lower temperature, fermentation stops, yeast fall asleep but don't die. High temperature can kill yeast due to boiling. The fermentation process causes an increase in the temperature inside of the container by a few degrees. The bigger the container, the higher the increase. Solution: if the wash stops fermenting due to the cold, transfer the container to a warm place. If the temperature is too high, create appropriate conditions and add a new batch of yeast. The wash should ferment in dark place or at least away from direct sunlight. You can cover the container with some fabric. Using an aquarium heater will solve this problem. When you buy one get one rated for double your fermenter size. 5 gallons bucket, get a 10 gallons heater. 4. Wrong proportions. If the wash stops fermenting in normal conditions but remains sweet, the optimal sugar content in the wort prior to fermentation is 15 to 20% of the volume. High sugar content is a preservative that inhibits or even stops fermentation. Don't go over a SG of 1.090. Another problem associated with an excess of sugar is a very strong wash. Most yeast strains stop working if ethanol content is more than 12 to 14%. Some types of distillers yeast withstand 16 to 18%. Closer to the border of tolerance, fermentation slows down. If there's too much sugar, the wash will obtain maximum strength and cease fermenting sooner than yeast will stop converting sugar into alcohol. On the other hand, low sugar content speeds yeast up and also significantly increases energy and time consumption during distillation because you'll have to heat up more liquid. Let's find a happy medium. Yeast converts 1% of sugar into 0.6% of alcohol. The wash, which is ready for distillation with the initial sugar content of 20%, will contain 12% of alcohol. 20 foot 0.6 equals 12. Any yeast will withstand such concentration. Some moonshiners suggest adding 5 to 6 parts of water per 1 part of sugar, arguing that the wash will stop fermenting sooner. Other things being equal, that's true, and also the short fermentation time will decrease the number of hazardous substances, which are waste of yeast. In my experience, there is no difference in the quality of moonshines with different hydromodules, sugar to water ratio. Solution: bring the ratio of the wash in line with the recommended values. If the sugar content is too high, adding fresh cold water or heated to 85 degrees is enough, just don't boil it to keep the oxygen. 5. Bad yeast. Active pressed yeast has a smooth pink, yellow, or gray color and homogeneous and moderately solid consistency. LTS shelf life in a fridge is up to 12 days. If there's a putrid smell, the yeast is spoilt. Also, get into the habit of a starter yeast, then you will know if your yeast is good or not. Pressed yeast. Dry yeast must be free-flowing. This can be checked by feeling the packaging. In case yeast was improperly stored, you should feel lumps or sticky consistency. Solution: if the temperature and sugar content of the wash is normal, you should add new yeast, preferably purchased in another store. 6. Low-quality water. Oxbean and mine rice contained in the water are reared for the normal development of yeastfune. That's WHI shouldn't to use. Enjoy Moonshine Life Recipes.